Dungannon Swifts was probably born into me. I don't think you honestly realise the opportunity that you have until the opportunity's gone. To get the opportunity to play for Liverpool was an amazing lifetime experience. I actually commit myself and dedicate myself much better as a coach or a manager than I ever did as a footballer. If you want to be a footballer, then sometimes your social life has to take a little bit of a hit. Don't let sentiment cloud your judgment. Make the right decisions for the right reasons, and the right reasons for me is winning. Phones are very, very dangerous. It can just ruin you in a blink of an eye. Sport is the biggest influence in terms of bringing all communities together.
Broken down the barriers, right?
I want to see as many from different communities coming out and supporting us on a weekly basis. I would encourage all kids at an early age to...
Over the years, the Dig podcast has grown so much, and that's because you've been subscribing to our channel, following on Apple and Spotify. So I suppose if you haven't done that and you're listening and you love our content, if you could follow on Apple or Spotify or hit that subscribe button on YouTube, it means that we're going to be able to keep doing this, that I can keep bringing the team along with me, have great guests like you've been hearing, and it just means a lot to us. So that's just my little ask for you today. And now we're back to the podcast. Today on the Dig podcast, we have Northern Ireland Football Writers Manager of the Year. You all know him already, Rodney McAree, who you will also know as the manager of Dungannon Swifts, who have recently won their first ever Irish Cup against Cliftonville. I am in the Swift colours. We have all the Swift merchandise. We have the two main people themselves. Welcome, Rodney, to the Dig podcast.
Thanks very much, Caroline.
What is going on? Is the celebrations finished or what is happening?
They went for about 2 weeks, then they sort of calmed down a little bit, but there's always little events coming up. We have our awards dinner tomorrow night at the Hilton Temple Patrick, which is going to be a lively occasion, especially whenever we've got the cup along with us. So we're really looking forward to that and getting back to another little bit of celebrating.
Oh my God, because I've been watching online everything and the feel-good factor to watch people that have worked so hard. Everybody can feel like we're all watching from the sidelines, even the people that aren't involved in the celebrations. We're all so proud of everything that you have done as a team and you as a manager. So I'm just psyched you're here, because everybody's like, how did you get Rodney McAree? I was like, well, I know somebody who knows somebody. Thank you to your lovely wife who helped us make that happen as well. So tell me, who is Rodney McAree? Yes, you're the manager of Swifts, but where did it all start?
Where did it all start? Probably started in the family that I was born into, to be honest, with my dad, Joe McAree, who's been renowned in terms of over the years working in the community in Dungannon, and he was a bar manager and the football manager whenever I was so high, whenever I was growing up. So Dungannon Swifts was probably born into me. It was something that I grabbed hold of very, very quickly. I knew I had a talent to play football. So I was always at his coattail and grabbing it and going along with him. And listen, I've been involved in football, as I say, all my life, and I've never really done anything else other than football. So
and those early days when you were, finding your way and that love of football, actually my notes were sitting on my kitchen table this morning. I'm a wee boy who's obsessed with all things sport, and particularly Swifts and what's happened. He's like, oh my God, he played for Liverpool, because I have my notes down here. Talk to us about that then. So obviously you had a love for it, but it grew into a lot more than that.
Yeah, we started Dungannon Swifts Youth whenever I was about 9, and we made my dad get us a game of football. So we played a team from Armagh at Stangmore, and that was the start of Dungannon Swifts Juniors then, which has led into Dungannon United Youth. But whenever I was under 12, under 13, I found myself going to a lot of clubs on trial. Back then you were allowed to go at any age. So I was going across to Norwich and Aston Villa, Arsenal. I was invited to Celtic, Rangers, a lot of clubs. I ended up going to about 12, counting Liverpool. But Liverpool was in my blood too. I was a Liverpool fan. So to get the opportunity to go to Liverpool and play for Liverpool was an amazing lifetime experience. It didn't work out as well as what I wanted, but I had 4 years at Liverpool, played along with a lot of good players.
Drop them in. I want to hear.
Well, the best I played with was John Barnes. So I played with John Barnes in a few reserve team matches. Robbie Fowler started the year after me. Dominic Matteo started the same year as me. But yeah, they're like Jan Molby, Ronnie Wayne and Bruce Grobler, all there at that time. And I would have played along with them all. And they were a great bunch of people. It was a great experience for me. And as I say, I could have done a little bit better. I could have committed myself a little bit better than what I did. I feel whenever I look back on it.
Talk about that bit, because there'll be young people listening to this and that level of commitment that's needed. Now, tell me what happened there. What do you mean by that?
I don't think you honestly realise the opportunity that you have until the opportunity's gone. So, like, you get one go at it. I was fortunate. I got 10 years in England. I went from Liverpool to Bristol City, and then I went to Fulham, and found myself coming back to Northern Ireland. So I done reasonably well, but with a little bit more commitment and a wee bit more hard work, I could have made a real good career for myself, and that's probably helped me now whenever I went into the coaching side of things and the managing side of things. I actually commit myself and dedicate myself much better as a coach or a manager than I ever did as a footballer. So. Is
that just age and youth was on your side and not kind of carefree? Is that, or is there a way to channel that for people?
A little bit of regret as well. A little bit of regret that you could have done a little bit better as a player. So you want to challenge yourself to do as best as you possibly can as a head coach, manager, whatever it may be. So it's certainly given me a bit of a passion, a bit of a drive to try and be successful in this role that I'm doing now.
And then, so you probably see a wee bit of yourself in some of your players at times in different ways. So how do you encourage them then to not maybe have that regret? Like, how do you get them motivated? And
well, a lot of people will say that your team will reflect the manager, and I think our team does reflect me in terms of we try to make it a very enjoyable experience and a very enjoyable environment for the players to go into. That was one thing that I always thought whenever you went in as a player and you're working along with managers, some were a wee bit too in-depth, some were a wee bit dragged out, different little bits and pieces, didn't treat the players the way that you thought you should have been treated. So I try to treat the players the way that I would have wanted to be treated. I try to put on sessions for the players that I would have wanted to be part of as a player. So I try to treat them in a way that I wanted to be treated. And I think it has paid off for us. We've a fantastic changing room, a great group of people. We don't have one rotten apple in the changing room. If we do create a rotten apple, then we maybe move that rotten apple on, and he finds himself somewhere else. Yeah. So it's important that we have a good changing room. I do think that the changing room reflect what I am as a coach or a manager.
When you say changing room, now you remember I'm not as into all the technical side of things. Is that your whole team you're talking about when you're saying changing room?
It would be the whole squad and the whole backroom staff. Everybody coaches everybody. Everybody has to buy in. Everybody has to be singing off the same hymn sheet. And I think if we all sing off the same hymn sheet, then we'll have a better chance of succeeding.
Mm-hmm. And then, so you went to Liverpool and you had that time in England, and then you came back here. So what happened when you came back then? Was that your time to really throw yourself into the Swifts?
I actually, whenever I came back, the Swifts were probably bottom of the first division, but the league below the Premiership. I actually went and joined Glenavon.
Oh, right. Is that not like you don't do that?
I got a wee bit of grief for it, but Glenavon were going well in the Premiership at that time. I ended up having about a season and a half with Glenavon. We finished second in the Irish League. We got till 2 semi-finals that season. We played in Europe the following season against Kilmarnock. So it was a successful enough little period. I didn't do as well as what I could have. I was coming out of a marriage as well. I had been married in England and didn't work out. So at that stage it was either stay in the outskirts of London or come back to Northern Ireland. And through my family, we decided that I'd come back and try to set up a career here and see how I enjoyed it. So it was a difficult period as well. So that probably reflected in my performances as a player. But
and whenever you're saying that there, like, it really I think when people share something like that, it shows people are living their lives and going through all these things, whether it be, relationships, sickness, different things, and it affects your play and your sort of psyche. Of course it does. So I suppose you've learned ways, and we can talk about that for your players on how to build up that resilience against, when you're going through that.
Yeah,
life.
It is life, and there's ups and downs in everybody's life. But it's getting over them.
Yeah.
And listen, it's probably the best thing that happened to me, to be honest, because I've met a real good girl in Adele. I've married somebody who I love to bits, and we have a real good relationship. And I've went on to be successful with Dungannon Swifts. So everything sort of fell into place for us. But the initial period's difficult. The initial period, whenever you think the whole world's caving in on you. Mm-hmm. you do lie rolled up in a corner somewhere, and you think that's the way of dealing with it. But your way of dealing with it is getting on with it and getting out there and trying to get on with your life. So it took a little bit of time to realise that. But obviously then once I meet Adele, things start changing for me and it becomes a good time.
It's so good to hear somebody share that other side of it. I could see the football and the glamour and the winning and all, but the life's going on in the background. So the players that you are in your team and that you support, Rodney, and they're going through all these things in life, how emotionally do you, as a team, and I'm kind of skipping on to the things I was going to talk about later, but just when we're talking about it, how do you support people through their life things as well as teaching them and, mentoring them and all that? Is there things in place in the club for helping people?
We would have say social workers. We would have people within the club who players can go and speak to. I think it's important from my point of view and my role that I have good one-to-one relationships with all the players, and you try to do that as best you can. That probably comes down to man management. And whenever I think of my dad as a manager, his main strength was his man management and his motivation, but he was fantastic at the man management side of things. I see myself as more of a coach than what my dad was, but I've taken a lot out of him in terms of how he dealt with players, people, situations, and you just try to learn from experiences, and I maybe learned from my experience as well in terms of that life episode for me.
I just want to take a minute in the podcast to tell you all about our brilliant sponsor, McNichol Caravans. Are you dreaming of escaping to the coast? Whether you're looking for a caravan for private use, a temporary home during renovations, or a getaway spot at a holiday park, McNichol Caravans have got you covered. They provide caravans that suit you. They've got the perfect one waiting for you. Whether it's new or used, they offer a wide range of caravans to suit every lifestyle and budget. They supply not just to their own holiday parks, but to a wide range of parks across the North Coast and throughout Ireland. Their transport and sighting services are hassle-free, meaning your caravan will be delivered and set up with zero stress on your part, whether that's at your own private site or on a holiday park throughout Ireland. Visit mcnicholcaravans.com to find your perfect caravan. Their friendly, experienced team is there to guide, advise and make you feel welcome. They're not just selling you a caravan, they offer the complete experience. And now back to our guest. And it's good to hear there is that kind of outside support then for players. It's so important because there's mental health as well as physical health, as the Swifts I know embrace. We're going to talk about loads more, but I need to dive into the game, right? So I was cooking away as I be doing in my house, and the Swifts was on. It was on up in my mother and father-in-law's. It was on up in my mummy and daddy's, and then our boys. And I have two boys, and my husband, my wee girl, was fiddling about. But the roaring and all, and then I was like, what's happening? And then penalties, right? Penalties. I have a question for you. Okay. And it's from a wee boy called Pierce, right? So he loves all things sport. And he's like, here, ask Rodney this. No, hold on, I get it up for you. And then I'm sure there's so many people listening, because I would join in then when things start getting exciting. And I was like, right, anyway, here's what Pierce wanted to know.
How did you compose yourself whenever the penalties were being taken?
That's from Pierce. For anybody who didn't hear that, Pierce wants to know, how did Rodney compose himself? So tell us what happened. It went to penalties.
Yeah, it's a good question, Pierce. Listen, I feel as if, as a manager, if I be nervous and I be jittery, all of a sudden it'll come across in the players. So it was important, as soon as the game was finished, it was important that as soon as we got our first opportunity to speak to the players as a group, that we had to be as positive as we could. So we actually spoke about the goal line clearance from Biggie. We spoke about a couple of saves that Dackie had made to our goalkeeper, and we tried to build on the positive straight away. And then we set about trying to find out who wanted to take the penalties. And we had, and as a coach, you always want one of your biggest players to step up and say, I'll go first. And whenever Gail Biggerman turned around and said he wanted to go first, I thought at that stage we were in a good place. Leo Alves said he wanted to go second. Two great players, two great ball strikers. And I had complete faith and complete trust that they could go and deliver it for us and get us off to a good start. I also knew that we had a very good goalkeeper, and as good a goalkeeper as there is in the league. So I believed that he would save at least one of the 5 Cliftonville ones. So it was about trying to remain composed, trying to remain calm. As I say, if I be jittery and I be nervous, it'll reflect on the players.
How do you do that though? Tell us, is there things you do in your head? How do you stay calm?
Probably just probably talking to myself, probably composing myself and making sure that I do stay calm. Even during the game, I try to stay as calm as I possibly could. As I do, whenever I first started being a manager, I was probably more involved in the game in terms of falling out with referees, falling out with the fourth official, falling out with the opposition's dugout, falling out with players in the pitch, and you sort of wasted your time. You wasted a lot of your energy because you were getting involved in some things that you had no control whatsoever. So you have to, people talk about controlling the controllables, and for me, control myself and control my emotions as best as I possibly can. And I've good people around me. I know whenever we were taking the penalty kicks, it was Terry Fitzpatrick, Choke on my right, and Dixie Robinson on my left. Now, Dixie's a lifetime friend. I've known him for forever, really. Choke I've played with for a long time. So I know every time we went to hit a penalty kick, I was gripping them, but I wasn't showing any real other emotion. Choka talked about his ribs, talked a bit of a batter and during the penalties, but it was just about staying composed and staying relaxed, and hopefully then the players could go and deliver, which they did.
And did it bring back, wasn't it 2011?
2007.
2007,
Yeah.
sorry, you took on to manage, isn't that right, in 2011, but
Yeah, that's
till
right.
2018,
Yeah,
but you played in 2007 when them penalties happened.
Yeah.
In the same kind of situation.
Yeah. And we played Linfield, and Linfield done the clean sweep, I think, that season. So they were a fantastic team, and nobody had really give us a chance till win the final. But we had managed to take it to penalty kicks. And the most frustrating thing for me that day was I was actually our penalty taker. And this is where probably you learn from experiences as well. Linfield missed their first 2 penalty kicks. We scored our first one through Johnny Montgomery, and I had decided that I would take the 4th penalty, which was maybe a wee bit selfish of me, because I sort of thought to myself, the 4th one's always maybe the one that you win the cup with, and I'll be able to go and run and celebrate with the crowd. I believe if I had took the 2nd one, we would have went 2-0 up.
Right.
In the penalty kicks, and we would have been very hard to have been beat at that stage. So that was a huge regret whenever I look back on it now, and it's something that we spoke about even coming up to the final, and we said that we had to make sure that we had our best penalty takers going up that were on the pitch at that time, going up first to get us off to a good start.
Right, a lot of learning from that then, that
A lot
you're
of
able
learning.
to implement with your new team.
Yeah, and at the time you don't overly think too much about it because you're younger, you don't have the experience, you haven't been in that situation before. But then whenever it all started to sink in, we realised that if I had maybe went second, we maybe would have got off to a better start. But it was disappointing, but it certainly helped us in this occasion.
I know, and that's good learning as well. You put into practice then what you learned. So that was in 2007. Fast forward to 2025, you're in the penalties, you're composing yourself by that self-talk in your head.
Yeah.
Because you do see some managers on different kind of scales of sport, and some are going mental.
Yeah.
And then you're like, I'll be me. But then you see someone like you, quite very composed, and I suppose that was why Pierce was wondering, how do you do that? And it's so important when you share stuff like that, because young people are listening, and it's such an influence on them, isn't it, for someone like you to say something like that? Massively.
And my dad always said to me that if anybody wants to give you a wee bit of advice, listen to it. You might want to take it on board, but listen to what they have to say. And I've tried to do that all my life as well. You know, there's a lot of things said to me that I sort of end up making my own decision, but ultimately you have to make your own decisions in life. But I think you can listen to people with experience and learn from situations and carry them with you the rest of your days.
Let's talk about your daddy. Big character in football in Dungannon, in supporting the community through that sporting element as well. And he actually has received an MBE as well for his dedication not only to football but to the whole Dungannon community, which is phenomenal. Big kind of footsteps to follow in. You've obviously embraced that and part of it. But talk to us, you've touched on it a wee bit about his influence and what he's taught you, what you've really got from him.
Just life experiences. As I say, I really respected him as a manager, not just as a father, but I always thought he was an exceptional manager in terms of how he dealt with people and how he motivated people. He certainly got people on side, and he got people working hard for him. He's been a massive influence for me, and kids nowadays don't appreciate what your parents actually do in terms of driving them here, there and everywhere till seek a career in football, and knowing that very few will actually make it to the very top. So I respect my mother and father massively in terms of what they have done for me over the years. And And whenever I went to England as 12 and 13-year-olds, there was no mobile phones, there was no nothing. I was put in a plane, 12 or 13 years of age, by myself. I was getting off.
Was that the way it was?
Yeah, I was getting off at the like of Heathrow, and I was walking through arrivals and walking out and seeing some man standing with a plaque waiting to pick me up. Now that man could have been anybody.
Anybody.
And my mum or dad would never have heard from me from the time I went through departures until I actually got to where I was and lifted a payphone and put 10p in it to phone and speak to my mum and dad. So, like, you think back to it, it's madness. It's madness, but that was the way it was in those days, and it caused me no concern. Like, whenever my mum and dad were invited then over to certain clubs, I was taking them through the air hostess stuff where they're doing where the doors is and the lights and stuff. I knew it off by heart, you know. So.
And where did you live when you were over there? Then who did you, or what way did that work?
Whenever you went to any club, you were always either put up in a B&B or a hotel, or you went into digs, and the digs were people who were employed by the club. But again, you look back and you think of the stories and you think of things that have gone on before, and I'm maybe very fortunate that I've never been involved in anything like that.
Yeah.
But it's it was mad. It was mad. Whenever I think back, you're coming out and it could have been anybody holding the board up, waiting for you to come off the plane, and you would have just jumped in the car and away you went.
I know. But your mummy and daddy said John anyway.
Yeah.
And then, so I suppose talking about that influence of them, then your daddy and what happened after, and he was obviously managing. Was he managing at home when you were doing this then? Yeah,
he was managing at home whenever I was away. Even whenever I was playing as a full-time player, he would have been coming to the end of his managerial career. But whenever I come back, I play for Glenavon. The Swifts were bottom of the first division at that stage. Dad actually come back in, and he was the reason why I went back to Dungannon Swifts. He had asked me whenever I was at Glenavon, would I go back and give him a hand and help him as a player. And I seen it as people maybe thought you lacked ambition. People maybe thought that you were going to a club which was a hell of a lot lower than the team that you were playing for at that time. I saw it as a challenge, and I saw it as me and my dad could go and actually do something special. So the end of the first season we went back, we had actually went from the bottom of the table till third. We finished third, so we narrowly missed out in promotion that year. The following year we won the first division, which brought us into the Premiership in 2003, I think it was. And we've stayed in the Premiership ever since. We continued to grow. We got in the Irish Cup final. We got beaten penalties. We played in Europe twice as a club. We won the Bet McLean League Cup in 2018, whenever I was manager myself. And now we've won the Irish Cup. And I think that's whenever people talk about ambition and you've no real drive or you've no ambition, I think whenever we're sitting here with this and you've maybe had the outlook that you can actually go and achieve something at that stage, I think to have it here now is fantastic.
Unreal. And I listened to an interview that you did, one of the local media, and you said that your daddy says he doesn't want to come to some of the games in case it makes you nervous. Yeah. What's that? Is that true? Does it? And
it doesn't make me nervous. I'd much prefer to have my dad at the games.
Right.
And not
is it making him nervous, maybe?
I think he sees me do different things within the game that he maybe would do differently. But I think this, and I think the achievement that we've had, I think him being at the cup final and us winning it, I think that'll maybe get him over the hurdle that he can come and watch us now. I love to have my dad. I love to have all my family at the game. Adele goes to support me as well, home and away. And I love having them all at the game. It's people like that you need around you whenever you're going into stressful situations.
Into the trenches.
Yeah.
I know, and family's so important, isn't it? Like, I mean, they're what holds us all together, and if they're not cheering you on, it's a lonely life too.
And I'm very fortunate. My dad's 79. My mum's just slightly younger. I had two grandparents. My two grannies lived 100 and 102.
No way.
My granddads had good lives as well. So I've been very fortunate in terms of a family that we've been very fortunate. We haven't really lost too many too soon.
That's amazing. My God, long livers.
Rodney,
no getting rid of you.
On the female side.
So yeah, I know your daddy's so well respected, and my own husband was saying this morning, you know, Rodney's dad's a man too. So everybody recognises it. And I suppose we're talking about the players. Is there any stories you want to mention about that? Is there any, inspirational stories about your players? I know they're all great in your eyes, but anything you want to share with anybody for young people that are listening?
There was going into my managerial career. I managed Glentoran a couple of years ago, and Roy Coyle was a a famous manager, managed both Linfield and Glentoran. He now follows Glentoran home and away. A great man, but he gave me a wee bit of advice, and it was something that I've carried with me into Dungannon Swifts, because whenever you come back to Dungannon Swifts, sentiment can sort of take over at times, because you're working along with a lot of people who you've had a lot of history with as well, and maybe a good friendship with. But the one thing he said to me was, don't let sentiment cloud your judgment. And for me, that was massive. And I'm going into the Irish Cup final, and you're having to leave people out of the 18, which is very, very difficult, and people who have contributed massively over the season. But going into that, you have to make big decisions. Personnel that start the game, how you're going to start the game, everything like that. You could fall into a trap where I felt in 2007 we left Niall McGinn out of it was 16 then. We left Niall McGinn out of the 16-man squad. And he ended up, he went from us to Derry City to Celtic, and he's had a massive career since. And he's somebody who I believe at that stage that if he had been on the bench, he could have come on and influenced it and could have got us over the line. But back then, in my opinion, we put people on the bench because they had been there a long time and they'd done so much for the club over the years, which was nice. But that's whenever I go back to your sentiment and what have you. You have to make the right decisions for the right reasons, and the right reasons for me is winning. You can keep everybody as happy as you possibly can, which is impossible. But it's not necessarily going to win you games and win you trophies.
It's a hard one, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Even my boys are playing football now, and even I wouldn't be as much in the sport as Jared and all is, but Jared say, oh, he was took off the day or something. He was only 9 and like, you as a parent too, you're like, oh, why is my child? But the manager's doing the right thing for the game at the time. That's a hard role.
It is a hard role, and listen, parents can be difficult too. Parents.
I try not to just rein it in, but I'm like, Jared's like, you can't go on like that.
Yeah, parents. Some parents and some parents end up trying to live their child's life or live their child's career in terms of maybe they had aspired to be a footballer, it didn't work for them, but they're now going to try and make sure that they're heavily influenced in their own kids, which is great in a way, but they have to allow their kid to go and enjoy his football, play with a little bit of a freedom and let things happen. And the best example for me with that is Conor Bradley, who was at Dungannon United Youth, Dungannon Swifts. He was only there for a few years, but his mother and father managed him impeccably. The decisions that they made for him over his career was for Conor and his football side of things. They didn't try to drive him. Conor could have left Dungannon Swifts at any stage and went to any of the big Belfast clubs, but his mother in particular knew that he was at a good place and wanted him to stay there because she felt that was the right thing for him. So let your kid live your life. Let your kid live their life and get to wherever they can get to. And ultimately, if kids put all they can into everything that they do and they give themselves every opportunity, they'll get to whatever level they'll end up getting to.
Such a big topic, isn't it? Because I watched the documentary, David Beckham, and the daddy was so focused, wasn't he? David Beckham's father.
Yeah.
And, I said to Jared when we were watching it, like, you'd wonder, would David Beckham have been what he was? I know he's obviously very skilled and he's amazing, but the daddy was the driving force, wasn't he? Like, behind him, practice.
Yeah, and whenever I'm going to name drop again, but whenever you talk about David Beckham, whenever I went to Liverpool, David Beckham and Paul Scholes, Nicky Butt, Keith Gillespie, Gary Neville, Phil Neville, all those boys were starting out at Man United. So I had the opportunity to go to Man United and be part of that group at the same age, but I chose Liverpool. And which I was probably I was a massive Liverpool fan,
right, okay.
But I loved going to Man United too, and it was a big temptation. And looking back, if you had went to Man United, you'd have put yourself in a group of people who all pushed each other and all drove each other, and a lot of them went on to massively successful careers. Ultimately, I ended up playing against them all whenever I was at Liverpool. And they would have given us a few tankings, to be honest.
Tankings is what, like beatings?
They're very heavy beatings as well.
Yeah.
So you sort of think that, and I speak to the young lads now whenever they walk in the changing room, even whenever you walk in for the first time, one of the biggest decisions you'll make is where you actually sit in the changing room, who you're actually going to sit beside. Because I always found myself whenever I went into the changing room in England, I seen these boys over here who want to have a bit of crack. and these boys over here want to stay on the pitch and do extra training. But I always thought this side was good fun, so I always went that way. So it's important to find that mix as well in terms of the balance, and don't find yourself going down the wrong route as soon as you arrive at any club. Pick the right options.
So, like, that translates into every area of your life. You know that thing you see online and what people say as well, you are who you surround
yourself. Yeah.
That's that exact thing you're saying there, isn't it?
And I'd agree with that. Listen, in life you've probably the opportunity to pick your good friends. I believe I've picked good friends all over the years. I've never got myself into bother, or too much bother, let's say. But you have to surround yourself with good people.
Because, Ronnie, I'm very conscious there's going to be a lot of young people watching this, like I said, who are easily influenced and are maybe find themselves not in the right circles, and my aim for a conversation like this is for young people and people who are perhaps on a different path and want to get into a more positive space. Maybe they're not hanging around with the right people. Maybe they're doing things they shouldn't be doing. Hiking, sport. What would you say to people like that are listening, to try to motivate them to find a different way?
Well, we have players within our changing room who, in my opinion, are fantastic footballers. But then whenever you look maybe at their lifestyle, you look at their background, what have you, it maybe doesn't help them in terms of progressing, and that's difficult to say, but people do need to make the right choice in terms of who you do surround yourself with. It's massively important. It's massively important even in self-motivation for me as well, because if you surround yourself with people who aren't motivated, ultimately you'll end up not motivated yourself. But if you surround your people who have that drive and that passion and determination that they want to be successful, they don't have to be born by any stretch of imagination, but they just have to be driven. So you're pushing yourself, and you're trying to achieve what others are achieving as well, and keep you driving forward. If that makes sense.
Of course it does. And then it's all the external things that are there now that weren't as, maybe there was always external things whenever you were younger and when I was younger, but there's a big kind of culture now of I would just say it, like alcohol, drugs, external things going on that can really affect young people's progress when they're maybe, and I suppose I want to speak to as many leaders as we can to encourage people to step away from that kind of life and embrace physical activity, which leads into so much more.
Yeah, well, funny, just last weekend I went to watch our under-16s, and our under-16s are a very good team. I have a lot of very good players. And it was their last game, and I went to the change room to speak to them and sort of give a wee bit of feedback on the game, but then talk to them about other things. And one of the things that I spoke to them about was they're 16 years of age now. They're coming into a very, very difficult period in their life. It's a very enjoyable period of their life as well, but it's a period of their life that they could find themselves going one way or going the other. Alcohol becomes a part of it. Girlfriends, boyfriends, whatever it may be, become a part of it as well. So, ultimately their next 2-3 years is probably their biggest years of their life, because it maybe sets them, if they want to be a footballer and if they want to go on and play at the highest level as they possibly can, their next 2 or 3 years is the most important for them in terms of remaining focused and understanding why they're playing the game of football and where they want to get to.
What do you say to them? Like you say, people don't be going out getting drunk and how do you motivate young people?
Young people have to have a life. They have to enjoy themselves. But for me, it's all the enjoyment all comes in moderation. You have to find that balance again. You have to find that connection between your social life and your football life. If you want to be a footballer, then sometimes your social life has to take a little bit of a hit, and you have to say no at times till things that you maybe want to go to, but it's not the right thing that you do go to. But it's all you can do is try to give them a little bit of information and a wee bit of advice, and the good ones will take it on board, and the ones that will ultimately end up at the top of their sport will ultimately take it on board. Others will fall by the wayside. Some will refuse to listen to it. Some might listen to it and forget about it straight away. But you'll find the good ones will always be the ones that listen.
I know, and that's just part of life, I know. But I suppose it's important we all keep pushing that message out, isn't it? And try to get people to hear it in different ways.
Yeah, I wish I had listened. And
you did all right.
I did okay, but again, I feel as if I could have got a hell of a lot further than what I did. So yeah. I wish I had. Like my dad always said to me, he says, you don't have to go out partying, you don't have to do this, you do that. Have a good footballing career. you'll get to 30, 32 years of age, you can start enjoying life then. Yeah, and your money's made and everything's made, which was good advice. But again, I was one of the ones that maybe 3 days later I'd forgot about it.
Just human nature, I know and all, but I think there is more kind of life advice out there now for people, especially online. People have these role models online they've never met. People will be watching you now. Years ago, there wouldn't have been that kind of media coverage of people like you in easy access, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So if we take a piece like that you've just said and we put it out in our socials and lots of young people see it, this is a good way for people to learn.
Yeah, and phones are very, very dangerous. Extremely dangerous in terms of you could be in a situation where you maybe let yourself down and somebody's got a camera on and all of a sudden.
Talk about that, Rodney.
It's just being very, very, very scary. Yeah, it can ruin your life in a blink of an eyelid. In terms of like social media, it's so easily spread. It can go across thousands of people in split seconds, and it's just about trying to make sure that, and again, that's probably surrounding yourself with good people, and making sure that you haven't got people around you. Sometimes you think that you have friends. Sometimes those friends can be the ones that ultimately want to sink you and ultimately don't end up being your friend. So as I say, phones, cameras, so accessible. Social media is so accessible. Can just ruin you in a blink of an eye.
It really can, and it's obviously very much part of my job, so I'm so aware. And I would go in to speak to young people in schools, and I would say, you never know, always, have respect for yourself, because you never know when someone's filming things.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean you deserve your life to be ruined, but it actually can happen.
We all go. Like I'm going next weekend. We go to Albufeira. The staff's going for. It was 10 of the staff's going for a little weekend away.
Yeah, you deserve
to
it.
celebrate. But it's even then, whenever we talk, we'll not get up to any badness as such, but we'll always turn around before we go and say, listen boys, no cameras, we don't need to be taking photos of people and stuff like that there. Just let's go and enjoy ourselves. So hopefully that's the case, but as I say, nothing will be too bad. But it is, you go away and things like that, and all of a sudden you're away from home and there's a video or there's a photo or something's put up about you, and
it's people's perception of that video is different, and it could be you just having a bit of crack, but it's totally taken wrong.
100%.
So young people just need to be so aware of that, and messages like this hopefully will get out to them. Talking about the people and the community and all, I have another question here from Pierce. He's taken after me. He looked.
There's a future in this.
I was like, George said to me, I had never asked that, but he's asking. So let me see. We're in question. I think it was the first one we asked.
How do you think this obviously win affects the people of Dungannon and the people that play for the Dungannon Swifts? And how do you feel now that you're playing European football?
That's 2 questions, Pierce. But the first one, Rodney, about Dungannon people.
It's blown me away, to be honest. Whenever you say about the TV's on your house, your mother and father's house, everybody's like the amount of people that has came to me and has said didn't get to the game but watched the penalties, and even going into Dungannon United Youth, like before the cup final, the kids would have been aware that you were involved with Dungannon Swifts, but maybe not as aware. So as soon as you go back into the community, the sense of achievement then comes through the community. And I do a lot of walking. I try to do a lot of walking. I can walk and do my job and talk on the phone and think about sessions and think about teams. And whenever I'm walking around the town, and I'm walking around parts of the town that years ago I shouldn't have been in or wouldn't have been in.
Yes, okay.
But you people banging the horn and
talk about that. Stop there, because that's a big thing. This has united us
so much.
United us.
So
and
much.
Sometimes people don't talk about it, but I think it's important to talk about. So when you say there's certain areas in every town, and because of the way we've all been brought up in this country, in years gone by, you wouldn't have went in there and you wouldn't have said you supported the Swifts or you supported the GA team, or you supported, because you'd been afraid of people attacking you. But thank God things are changing.
And I was born and raised in Moygeashel. I'm still a Moygeashel man. But that's my place of birth. That's a place that I love for no other reason, and that's where I'm from.
Born,
But like I'm walking a couple of weeks ago. I'm walking through Lisnahull and up the Oaks Road, and you sort of think to yourself, back in the day, you wouldn't have walked through Lisnahull. You'd have run through it maybe. But there's so many people beeping the horn, hanging out the window, shouting, "Brilliant, Rod, well done," and it just gives me so much satisfaction. And and sport can do that. Sport is the biggest influence in terms of bringing all communities together. For me, there's no religion in sport. There should be no religion at all, for me, to be honest. But there's certainly no religion in sport. And it has brought like these Timorese community in Dungannon, the Polish, the Lithuanian. There was so many of them even at the game. And so many from different backgrounds and different cultures at the game, and so many even talking to you after it from all communities, all backgrounds. It makes you so proud to be involved in something that has done that for our community.
Broken down the barriers, right?
Yeah, and we need to continue to break down barriers. I want to see as many from different communities coming out and supporting us on a weekly basis. I would this blows my mind. I'm friendly with Jared Kavlin, and Jared comes to the Swifts matches every week, and he has started this season to come every week because his son's interested in it.
For people who are listening and don't know, Jared used to play for Tyrone.
Won the All-Ireland, won the All-Ireland with Tyrone. Fantastic guy. Yeah. And to know that people like that is supporting soccer in our community and supporting Dungannon Swifts is fantastic. And we want to... I would love to see Dungannon Swifts have a Polish supporters club, an East Timorese supporters club, a Portuguese, Lithuanian, whatever it may be. I would love to see that have all a supporters club that are all coming to Dungannon Swifts and all sides of the community coming together and supporting us weekly.
Unreal. There's not too many people say that out loud, but I just think that it's class and it's important, and I feel it because I'm 42. I obviously remember, thank God, not a really hard time, but I know everything, that everybody's been through, and sport was always a division in some ways years ago where you knew what you were, depending on how deadly to have a stadium full of people. It doesn't matter. We have to grow. We have to grow, and if we don't grow, we're never going to move forward. I was always critical of Dungannon Swifts over recent years, that they always complained that people didn't come out and support us, but we never really went to the community. We never went to them to try and offer them something to come and support us with. Now this has helped massively. Whenever we go up into the Market Square the night of the open top bus parade, I was panicking. I was really panicking that there would be maybe 50 or 100 people lining the streets and that would be it. But whenever Nigel Scott of Viscount's restaurant had his two sons play first, his three sons play first. Actually, we've one in the under-18s as well. He had invited us to stop at Viscount's in the open top bus for a glass of champagne. So whenever we were actually coming up to Perry Street, and you're looking up Perry Street, and the street's lined on both sides, of all people, of everybody. I'm getting shivers.
And then whenever we had the glass of champagne, maybe two, we drove up Perry Street, up Church Street, we got into Market Square, and we turned right, and to see the crowd, and to see people from Dungannon Clarks, from Eden Dork, from all the local Gaelic clubs, and the messages of support from Argyll Kieran and all those, and I'm naming those, and I'm probably being hard on others, because everybody sent us a congratulations message, a good luck message, and to see everybody from those backgrounds and those clubs out supporting us in Market Square that Monday night was remarkable.
It's much more than sport, is what I see here when I hear you say that.
Yeah.
And then sure, look, you had Philomena and like laid a blanket on the ground and all those.
I was mad.
I was like, this is unbelievable. This is unreal.
I was mad, and Stevie Mohan was at the off Cuba Clothing was at the semi-final against Bangor at Crusaders Ground, the Shore Road. And whenever he got on the bus to come back up, the supporters would play Philomena Bagley on the bus and it all, because it's a song that brings all ages together. Everybody knows it, everybody loves it. So the whole bus starts singing it. So as soon as I got back to the club, I sat with Stevie, and Stevie says, I have to get Philomena down. I'm going to get her down. And he brought her down the Thursday night, about 10 days before the final. And she came into the club and she sung about 5 songs. Queen of the Silver Dollar and Blanket in the Ground, obviously, and the buzz that she created, and ever since then, it's the only song. It's the only song you can't get out of your head. We're doing the warm up on the pitch the day of the Irish Cup final, and I'm standing. I don't take part. I don't do anything in the warm up. I've my work probably done at that stage for a bit, but I go out and I was taking in the atmosphere and looking at the crowd, and Philomena Bagley's playing Blanket in the Ground at the National Stadium, and you could see everybody from the Cliftonville side and the Dungannon side all dancing. women that you never thought you would see at football game, all dancing in the crowd. And then whenever we win it, they play it again. We're singing it with the supporters, and it's been sung quite a few times, and hopefully it'll be sung quite a few times more.
It'll be my theme tune for their launching this podcast.
Yeah,
I'll be playing a bit of Philomena.
And she was brilliant. She was remarkable.
Yeah. People who don't know, by the way, Philomena is a legend in country music from Tyrone, and embraces all sides of community, obviously, and wants to grow with that as well. I think she's in her 80s now.
She's coming 83. She's coming 83. A
Unreal.
remarkable woman.
Music and sport, that's another one then,
Brilliant.
bringing people together and no barriers there. And then the next bit of Pierce's was, what about European football? What's happening?
We have to wait to see who we draw. We go into the draw, I think, on the 18th of June. So it's exciting times. It'll be a quick turnaround in terms of getting everything planned, everything prepared. But that's something that I'm really looking forward to as well. I coached at Glentoran whenever we got into Europe. It was one of the reasons why I wanted to go to Glentoran, because I thought they had a realistic opportunity of getting European football. Unfortunately, we drew TNS of Wales, so that was as far as I got. We got beat by TNS. So you would really like a good European tie, somewhere that you can go, somewhere that's different, somewhere that's warm, nice, nice for the supporters, and obviously not too expensive to get to, because then the club would make a couple of extra pound as well. So it's something that it's a new challenge for me. It's probably a different style of football as such. You probably have to try and set your team up a little bit differently than you do in the domestic league. So it's a new challenge for me, and it's one that I'm really looking forward to embracing.
We can't wait to see where it all leads, and Philomena will be going too, no doubt. What I had a wee question down here, like what life lesson, we've sort of talked about loads of lessons you've learned, but is there an overall thing you've learned as being a manager, a life lesson that you have learned that has taught you? Or
really just treat people as you want to be treated yourself. You probably think whenever you go into the coaching side and the managing side, you probably think of the people who you've worked with before. I went to Liverpool. My first coach at Liverpool was the great Steve Highway, who was a Liverpool legend. Played in the 70s, fantastic footballer, and he was a fantastic coach. So you take bits out of him, you take bits out of Kenny Dalglish, who was manager whenever I went to Liverpool off the first team. Would had dealings with him. Mickey Adams, who I played with at Fulham, was a great man. Russell Osman, fantastic man at Bristol City. Russell Osman was in the Escape to Victory movie as well. So I was
I didn't know that.
So I worked along with all those, and my dad and different things. That you take a lot of good out of the people that you've worked with, but you also maybe look at the ones that you didn't overly enjoy, and you maybe think, well, why did you not enjoy them? And try to take bits out of them as well, which is difficult because you were probably dealing with or working with a lot of people who had done things at a very high level, but there were still things that you didn't enjoy.
Mentors, I take from that, like they're all mentors in your life that you take wee bits from each one. Yeah,
100%. And I think if you can take good bits and rule out bad bits, and it probably makes you a better person, hopefully. I'm sure there's going to be people that look at me and pick bad bits out about me as well, and that's up to everybody's own decision. Everybody's got their own decisions to make in life.
And how do you, I haven't even wrote this down, but how do you cope with that now? So everybody within their jobs and their life have those outside perspectives of what you are, maybe they say what you are, you might hear things people say. How do you stay strong against that?
Probably again learning from you get too involved in it whenever you start out. You worry about it too much. I know whenever I was manager at Glentoran, and Glentoran's a fantastic football club with a massive fan base. I know whenever we lost a match, Adele would have turned around to me and said, "Don't read social media. No, stay off social media because you're getting lambasted." But that was part of learning and understanding how other people saw it as well.
But
so
did you?
I would have read it, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So talk about that then. How's that? I know what that's like in my job, and I've learned I don't read it now, Rodney, because it really affects me. So you did read it, right?
I think I've confidence in myself that I can read it and I can deal with it. I don't get too caught up on it. I actually read things, and sometimes there's maybe been a criticism of me in terms of a decision that I've made, and sometimes whenever I read it, it makes me think that maybe they were right. Maybe there's something I can take out of it. Now, it never got to a stage which was too abusive whatsoever. I was very well thought of as manager there, so I didn't have to deal with it an awful pile, but I would never shy away from it. I would always read, if I was good enough to read the good bits about you, I think you have to be good enough to take it on the chin and go in and read the bad bits too. So it's either you read social media or you don't read social media for me. You know, if you're on social media, which I am, and sometimes I think I'd love to get off it. But if I'm on it, then I have to deal with the good and the bad.
Because I watched an interview that one of the media stations interviewed Mickey Hart, and it was talking about when he went from training, he obviously is manager of Tyrone for years, but then he went to Derry, and that was like you going to, was that like you going to the Glenallen?
Yeah, something like that,
And one of the media people said to him, "How you feeling, Mickey, about everything everybody's saying about you online?" Because that was like pure betrayal in a lot of the hardcore Tyrone people's eyes. He says, I wouldn't know anything about that. I wouldn't know anything about that. So he's made a decision for his
and I admire that.
Yeah.
I admire that.
He doesn't read it.
Yeah.
Good or bad, he said.
Yeah, take yourself off it completely. And as I say, there is times that it consumes you at times more than anything. It's not the good and the bad that you read. You find yourself on it too much. And like the first thing you do whenever you wake up, if you're on social media, you pick your phone up and you go social media and you see what's happening in the world. But sometimes I think if you got away from social media completely, the world would be a better place.
I know, but I don't think that's ever going to happen.
No, definitely.
So we have to learn ways to deal with it.
Yeah.
It's probably, and that's a good one that you said, you're on there, you're reading the good, so you're going to take the bad and take what you need out of it to get better.
Yeah, and not let it consume me too much.
Yeah, not get hung up on the things that are just their opinion, not fact.
Yeah.
Thoughts aren't facts. I keep telling myself, don't think that because it's not a fact. So I'm always trying to learn. So thank you for that advice. If I'm going to read the good, I need to maybe look at the bad and take what I can. I wanted to finish off with what advice would you give to young people to get into sport? So whether it be the Swifts, Dungannon United Youth, any kind of sport, what steps can they take to bring themselves into that kind of environment?
I would encourage all kids at an early age to play as many sports as you possibly can, and play it until you get to a stage where you have to probably make a decision if you're good. If you're good at something or you're better at something, then sometimes Northern Ireland or Ireland is caught up in soccer and Gaelic. And if you go to play the soccer, you're deemed that you shouldn't be playing the Gaelic. If you want to commit yourself to the Gaelic, you have to give up the soccer. And ultimately, I think that's a decision that young players, the good young players, will ultimately have to make at some stage. And I look at Niall Morgan, Tyrone's goalkeeper, a good friend, and played for Dungannon Swifts for numerous years, and still helps us out on occasions if we're really struggling for a goalkeeper, or not really struggling because he's probably one of the best. But he got to the stage where he had to make a decision. He saw an opportunity of going on to be one of Tyrone's greatest ever goalkeepers, and which he has done. And he made the right decision for Niall Morgan at that stage. Niall McGinn, I go back to, was a fantastic Gaelic player for Donaghmore, and he had to make a decision as well, but he knew he was good at the soccer, and he went down the soccer route, and he made the right decision for Niall McGinn. So play as many sports, whatever that sport may be, but ultimately whenever you find out that you have to choose one, make the right decision for yourself and go and commit yourself to that sport.
Unreal. Great advice. And you're right, you're not going to know if you don't diversify and try lots of different things and see what you excel at, because you mightn't be good at one but you can feel so confident in another, but you're not going to know if you don't try.
And it's great social skills as well, because you're meeting kids you're meeting friends from different backgrounds as well. You're jumping into, you're maybe taking yourself out of a little bit of your comfort zone, and which is good for people as well, and it creates different challenges for yourself that you can go and embrace with other people that you might never get the opportunity to meet.
Unreal advice. I'd be letting my children watch this, and it's so funny. I don't know what your daddy's like. My daddy's 71, but when he comes down to my house, I put my podcast up on YouTube. Now, he has a smart TV, he has YouTube, and he always sits and I would play the episodes. He'd say, "And can I watch this up at my house?" Yes, Daddy. But I will always put it up on the big screen, and it's hitting all generations. But young people especially will be watching this, and I hope they're going to be motivated to grab the opportunities and embrace all the highs and lows that comes with it. But you just never know what the future holds, and it's always good for your physical health anyway, and mental health, because you're surrounded by a team like you, perhaps. And but thank you for taking the time to be on the Dig podcast. I am so grateful to your wife, Adele, because that's how I get in. Because I know everybody's looking and looking that cup. But I'm grateful to her for connecting us, and grateful to you for sharing time with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Have fun at the celebrations tomorrow night. This will be going out, and that'll have already happened. But have a good time. You deserve it all. We're all so proud of you. And thank you for being my guest today.
No, thanks for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.